Good morning. This is Dave Jones with Storm Center Communications and GeoCollaborate. It is just before 11 o'clock Eastern Time here on November 6th, 2024, Wednesday. And Hurricane Rafael has continued overnight to intensify. And yes, it did intensify rapidly. Now we have winds of 110 miles per hour that have been measured in this hurricane. And it has plenty of warm water to work with. But it also has land that it's going to interact with very soon. Let me take this full screen and I'll give you the latest in the status for the storm. Right now we have the location of 21.4 north, 81.9 west. This is based on the National Hurricane Center's 10 a.m. advisory. Obviously, it's moving slightly since then. 130 miles south-southeast of Havana, Cuba. Maximum winds 110 miles per hour. That's a Category 2 hurricane. One more mile an hour, and we'll have a Category 3 hurricane. So we're right on the doorstep of Category 3. Movement to the northwest at 14 miles per hour, and the pressure now is down to 960 millibars. And we can get a little bit closer here. If I can zoom in the right direction. There we go. So now we have the sea surface temperature data loading. Here is Cuba. It's now interacting with these small islands off the coast of Cuba. And we also have the emergence of the storm expected this evening or tonight. And that will be in the Florida Straits where water temperatures are still very warm. So we do expect the intensity of Rafael to be knocked down slightly as it cuts across Cuba, but not a whole lot. When it enters into a little bit more cooler waters, we may see a little degradation in the intensity. I'll get to that in just a second, but I do want to dive in as well to the mesoscale imagery. This is the Meso 1 sector. I have the latest information, but I'll also put up the watches and warnings. We have warnings that have been posted for the western central Cuba provinces there. And also, there are tropical storm warnings in effect for the lower and middle Florida Keys from Key West to west of the Channel 5 bridge. We may also see a little bit of storm surge in there. I'll put the peak surge amount that's expected in the tip of the Florida Keys there here in just a few minutes. But what you can see, and I'll take this off here. What you can see are these heavy thunderstorms. I've combined the visible satellite sector with the infrared satellite sector as well. And you can see these major thunderstorms around the eye. Here's the eye wall right around here. And these are very strong winds that are being experienced on these islands now. And the storm, Rafael, is expected to take this path and cut right across Cuba. And again, it will likely come down a notch in its wind speeds. But we do have this very intense hurricane in Rafael right now. I could turn off the infrared enhancements, but you can clearly see the eye in the infrared data. This is temperature information being detected by the satellite. But if I take that off, you can see the visible satellite. And here is the eye. Has some cirrus clouds in it a little bit, but when these storms get pretty intense, they do develop these eyes, and of course the eye wall, which is the heaviest rainfall and wind around the center of the eye that's going to be impacting these islands. Matter of fact, little Cayman Island, when the storm was just becoming a hurricane, the eye wall passed over that area. No pictures from there yet, but certainly they saw some pretty big storm surge and some very heavy rain and strong gusty winds. So what I'd like to do now is go over to GeoCollaborate, because in GeoCollaborate here, I've turned on the sandwich product. That's a combination of infrared and visible data. And within GeoCollaborate here, we can see what's happening. And that is right when the eye was even more visible. You can see here, and these massive thunderstorms surrounding the eye. I can get a little bit closer in here just to see that detail. And it is just incredible what we can do with different wavelengths, different channels in the satellite. The NOAA Goes East satellite which is geostationary orbit, so we can watch the same places at the same time. And this particular one is really showing quite a bit of thunderstorm activity. Now, I'm going to zoom out a little bit here and geocollaborate, and you can see the island nation of Cuba here. I'm going to turn on the forecast track from the National Hurricane Center and the cone of uncertainty here. So you can see the forecast track is expected to move across the island of Cuba. The cone of uncertainty really is a representation of where the center of the storm, that's the center of the storm here, will move. So it'll move anywhere between this line and this line. Typically, it's down the middle, but it doesn't have to be, especially when you get out in time and the errors in the distance grow. So that's why the cone of uncertainty is only about the center of the storm. Look at all the impacts outside of that cone that are happening right now. Lots of flooding and strong gusty winds headed into parts of central Cuba. So now I'm going to back out here, and I want to show you the wind radii. Remember, we talked about, we can see the wind radii in this storm, and this is what it looks like. It's being updated just about every hour now. So this is the hurricane force winds. This is how far out the hurricane force winds extend. This is how far the tropical storm force winds extend. This particular one, actually, slight correction. This is the storm force winds, about 50 to 55 miles per hour. This inner core is the hurricane force winds, so even tighter right now with the hurricane force winds. But we do show hurricane, storm force winds, and then tropical storm force winds. But look how much broader the wind field is than that cone of uncertainty. Okay, so I'm going to turn off the satellite image for Rafael here, because I do want to zoom out and show you what the forecast is and where things are expected to end up with Rafael. Now, this is good news, this update for the All Hazards Consortium and the Sensitive Information Sharing Environment, particularly for states like Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama. It looks like the trend in the model forecasts and the National Hurricane Center official forecast has been to take Rafael to the west after it makes landfall and really kind of just hang out in the central Gulf of Mexico. This is terrific news because whenever we have a landfalling tropical storm or hurricane, we have impacts, whether it's flooding, strong gusty winds, storm surge, that heavy, intense rainfall. We're going to have quite a bit of time to determine where this storm is going to go based on the influence of strong high pressure to the north. That's what's dominating the weather right now. Strong high to the north, and it's been giving drought conditions actually to the East Coast. Now, one thing I do want to show you, remember the other day I mentioned the ocean observing platforms, these wave drifter buoys that were out in the Gulf of Mexico. These were actually buoys that were dropped off the NOAA P-3 and off a couple of ships before Hurricane Milton made landfall and Hurricane Helene made landfall. Well, they've been moving around the Gulf of Mexico in the currents, and you can see them here. These are the buoys. And remember the other day I clicked on them and they were 0 for the wave heights. Well, Scripps Oceanographic Institute at UCSD in California have turned them on. So now we can monitor in real time what the waves are doing on the other side of Cuba here. And you can see, let's take a look at this one here. Here's a wave height of 8.9 feet. Right now, significant wave height with a 7-second dominant wave period, and the mean wave period is 5.95 seconds. What does all that mean? Basically means that every 7 seconds, a wave of 8.9 feet comes. So that's the buoy going up and down and up and down. And so it's enough to make you seasick if you were on a small vessel, that's for sure. Now here's one a little bit west of the Dry Tortugas, 4.5 foot wave height. with a 6-second wave period. And these other ones are turned on as well. The reason they've been turned off is because it uses more battery from the wave drifters to deliver wave height data, because you can see all these parameters. But now that the storm is approaching, these buoys are turned on with the wave height. So 5.9 feet there. We can also get an idea for what are the size of these aren't on yet. They haven't turned them on yet because the storm's still down here. Just trying to conserve batteries. But once Rafael emerges off the coast of Cuba, then it'll be throwing waves and driving waves towards South Florida, and we'll be able to monitor these as well. So this is some exciting research that we're putting into operations. That's one of the things that we do here at Storm Center Communications. So it looks like it's going to hit Cuba as a major hurricane with winds of 115 miles per hour here, and then emerge and still have 105 mile per hour winds in this part of the Gulf of Mexico. Now, if I get down here a little bit closer, this major hurricane status, 115 mile per hour winds as Rafael storms ashore in western Cuba. And really, there's not a whole lot of mountains right there that's going to have a huge impact in the storm. But then again, here by November 7th, that's tomorrow morning at 7 a.m., we're talking 105 mile per hour winds. But the great news is, look at the wind, tropical storm force winds. Now, they may expand a bit as the storm goes down from 115 or 110 mile per hour winds down to 105 and then 90. Wind field may spread out a little bit, but look how far away it's going to be if you can imagine the wind field coming up this way. And so it's a lower likelihood that the Florida Keys will endure any extended period of tropical storm force winds. Now, they will experience some surge because the water is going to be pushed out from the center of the storm with the circulation around the hurricane. So that's what we have here in the Florida Keys. We have a surge of 1 to 2 feet. 1 to 2 feet that is expected from Hurricane Rafael as it emerges off the Cuban coast. So that's something that can be dealt with. Some lower areas that are open to the roadways may have some water over those roadways for short periods of time, particularly at time of high tide. The same forecast for the dry Tortugas, but a little bit higher because it'll be closer to the storm, 1 to 3 feet as far as storm surge, peak storm surge is concerned. Now, as I get out here and zoom out a little bit more, I want to talk about impacts that will happen indirectly to Rafael. And I want to go for this because I'm going to talk about moisture streaming northward. I'm going to go back to the satellite imagery because I want to show what's happening with what we call the blended total precipitable water product. And I'm going to take that here full screen now. Here we go. This is the GOES satellite imagery in motion, but I also have the NOAA polar orbiting satellite data integrated into this so we can see exactly where the flow of moisture is going. You see this red area here? This is tropical moisture, and it's flowing to the north. So yes, in Florida, you're probably saying, oh, it's even more humid than what we normally see. That's because moisture is coming off of Rafael and headed to the north. And this purple area is even more concentrated total precipitable water. Now, what does that mean, total precipitable water? It basically means if you were to take a column of air directly over you and squeeze out all the moisture, so all of it fell as rain, that's how much rain that cloud or that column could hold. So the precipitable water values here are in the 3 to 4 inch range, and it's moving up into the panhandle of Florida, and you can see it's also moving up into Georgia and South Carolina. Well, we have a couple of other things happening as well. There's another, and I'll zoom out here just a little bit more so you can see a little wider what's going on, because here's Rafael, and here's also another tongue of tropical moisture. that is streaming to the north as well. More moisture associated with Rafael, and that's going to be coming up into Georgia and South Carolina. And we have a frontal system that's it's called frontogenesis, a frontal system that is developing over South Carolina and Georgia and North Carolina here. And that is going to act to focus this moisture coming up from the Gulf of Mexico, and has some of its origins with Hurricane Rafael. Going to focus that moisture up into this area. And that is why I'll go back here to GeoCollaborate, and I'll take that full screen as well. That is why we have this area that is of concern for potential flooding. All that moisture coming up will be squeezed out by this frontal system over the next couple of days, starting this afternoon into Thursday morning, where we could have a high chance here of flash floods and serious floods. We could have here, it's a 1 to 3 day excessive rainfall outlook, where we have at least a 40% chance of moderate rain in this area. Now, if you remember when we had Hurricane Helene come up the spine of the Appalachians, this was the outlook when we had excessive rain. Now, we're not talking Helene amounts, but we are talking perhaps 4, 5, 6, 7 inches of rain locally in some of these areas throughout Georgia and south central South Carolina. Also, the yellow area is just a little bit less likelihood, but still under the gun for this concentration of moisture. Of course, in the Midwest, we have quite a snowstorm that's evolving in Colorado. That system will be moving out and putting more moisture over Oklahoma, Kansas, and Texas, not associated with Hurricane Rafael. But this is the overall big picture. Now, why are the chances for rain so great here when you've been in a drought? Won't that land soak up all of that moisture? No, it won't. And I'm going to turn on the drought monitor for the U.S. This is the latest drought monitor. Let me change the transparency here and just turn that down a little bit. But look at how much of the U.S. is covered under this drought. And I'm also going to turn off this other layer here that is for the precipitation, the flooding potential. That's here under my WPC product. There we go. So I've turned that layer off because I just want you to look at how much of the U.S. is in drought conditions. This is not good for agriculture at all, feed for all of the animals and the livestock around the country. But look at this. So Atlanta, Georgia, remember, not a drop of rain in October. That happened all up and down the East Coast in many areas. So we are under drought conditions in Georgia, South Carolina, parts of North Carolina, not where they still had those heavy rains from Helene. Those grounds are still wet and moist, but up into Virginia, Maryland, Pennsylvania, all up into the Northeast, and the rest of the country really does need precipitation. Now they're getting some in Colorado, some pretty heavy snow falling right now. But this is something that is rather unusual to see so much of the U.S. in drought conditions. And with Rafael coming into the Gulf of Mexico here and then just spinning around, maybe we can get some beneficial rains, not flooding rains, but beneficial moisture coming off of that storm. That's what we're hoping. And so the last thing that I want to show you here is the model forecast. And this is a little bit tight in here for the GFS model, but I do want to show you that it does have a pretty intense hurricane, of course, that's going on right now. And so this is the GFS model. I have it focused in on Cuba, and this is sort of a storm-focused model run. You can see it making a landfall and moving across Cuba right now. And then the rain, there are going to be rain chances in extreme southwestern Florida. And as we saw with Milton, was such a intense hurricane coming ashore near Tampa Bay. And all those tornadoes that spun off of the outer bands of Milton, that was very intense. That happened in the right front quadrant of the storm. And so this is the right front quadrant of the storm right here. It's moving this way. So the right front quadrant is here. Some of these storms that kick up and move into southwest Florida could have a tornado in them. So there is the chance of potentially some rapid spin-ups of tornadoes as Rafael moves in that direction. And you can see some of these heavier bands that are still forecast to move. And that includes into places like Naples and Fort Myers and Port Charlotte, Punta Gorda, even on up into just south of Tampa and St. Pete. I'll move this forward another little bit, and you can see these bands just right off the coast of Florida. So really keep your eyes open. This valid time is Thursday night, so tomorrow evening and tomorrow afternoon is when you could see some of those really dark clouds roll in off the Gulf of Mexico. Could have strong wind gusts and perhaps a tornado or two. The National Weather Service will keep you posted with their local warnings when they get issued, and they will come across your mobile devices as well. So we'll continue to bring this out into the future, and now the storm is in the central Gulf of Mexico. Here is the southern coast of Louisiana here, and you can see the rain not impacting Louisiana at this period of time. You will get wave action, though, and there will be some strong waves coming ashore from Texas to Louisiana to Mississippi and Alabama and Florida, particularly with that southerly flow of moisture. So there is going to be rip current threats there as well. So I'm taking this all the way out here to Sunday. This is Saturday night, and you can see the storm just meandering, but finally on Sunday morning, Saturday night, some moisture does reach southern Louisiana. Doesn't look too intense, so maybe these will be more beneficial type of rains. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to change the region to the North Atlantic here. So here's the North Atlantic view, so you can get a wider look at how the path of Rafael looks. I'll take it backwards. Here it is right now, and we'll take it forwards. See that high pressure? This is the high pressure system that is really influencing the path of the movement of the storm. And that ridging of high pressure is just enough to sort of keep Rafael south and moving a little bit further west. So that's good news. And then the GFS kind of dissipates Rafael in the Gulf of Mexico into a low pressure system. Now, we'll have to keep monitoring that and see what happens over the course of the future. And I'm going to take this up even further. And the GFS has an ocean system that's developing too. This is out at hour 222. Fantasyland. I'll take this backwards to see where that low pressure comes from. And it looks like it comes off of a front. And some of the energy that's spun off of Rafael coming out across the ocean here. If I take that into motion forward, you'll see that area right here. This develops. And the models currently, at least the GFS wants to develop into quite an ocean storm in the Atlantic. So we'll see if that happens. That can stay out there in the ocean. The good news and the bottom line is that Rafael is not expected right now to have a major impact on the United States. That will keep our economy moving. It'll keep transportation going, and it'll give our utility crews a big break, and that is really good. So we do have the drought going on, but we do have Rafael throwing some moisture up here. There's a chance of flooding rains in Georgia and South Carolina over the next 2 days, and Rafael will be meandering. That's why the cone has gotten so wide. That means a lot of uncertainty to exactly where Rafael will be. Way out here, the Hurricane Center still has it as a tropical storm out here on November 11th with a 40-mile-per-hour tropical storm. So we'll keep you posted on everything that's happening. Rafael is a major player right now, and we are watching it with 1-minute satellite imagery. Thanks for watching this update. We'll be uploading it to the All Hazards Consortium Sensitive Information Sharing Environment Hub. Also sending it out through the SISE Signal app, so you can get a hold of it there, and up on our YouTube channel. Thanks so much for watching. We'll be back perhaps later this afternoon or during the day tomorrow as we monitor what is likely to be Major Hurricane Rafael approaching landfall in western Cuba here during the day today. Thanks so much for watching. Please take care of yourself and watch out for your neighbors. We'll see you later.